The revolution is here. A movement of people free to live, work, and choose. We won't tell you what to think. We just demand that you think for yourself. This is Kibbe on Liberty. Okay, we're at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, and some of my favorite people, the Harmon brothers, at least two of the many Harmon brothers. And I want to talk a lot about content creation and the movie projects that you guys are working on in this very disruptive model. But I want to premise it with something that I've been talking about as an economist for at least a decade, because I've been predicting that technology and the democratization of information and knowledge, and now financing is breaking down all of these top-down institutions that used to tell us what to think and what to do, and you really didn't have much choice in that process. And I've been waiting for two paradigms to fit that mold, and I think big media it's already happened. I think almost every business structure it's happened, but two places where I don't see it as much is politics and Hollywood, the movie industrial complex. And you guys have hopefully some uplifting answers as how we might solve this. But why don't we start with you, Jordan? Did I get it right?
Yep, you got it right.
Yeah, I'm awesome. Yeah.
We're like rabbits. There's a lot of us Harmon brothers. So
I'll start with you. Why don't you just introduce yourself, because I know a lot about what you guys do, but I think people would like to know.
Yeah. So I'm one of the co-founders of Angel Studios and the president, and our entire mission is to tell stories that amplify light. A little bit of backstory into that as to why we got into this is us four brothers, Neil, Jeff, Daniel, and I. We looked at the landscape back in 2010, 2012, 2013, and started realizing it's very quickly getting to a point where we aren't able to consume content with our kids or even ourselves comfortably, where we're just like, this is not the direction we want things to go. And so that's what kind of spurred this effort. We were about as far away from Hollywood in terms of where we come from. We're potato farmers from Burley, Idaho. And so if you would have told me as a kid, you guys are going to be helping create TV series and running a studio, I wouldn't ever believed you. But that's kind of a little bit of background.
Daniel.
I'm Daniel Harmon. I am creator of Tuttle Twins TV show. I'm also a co-founder of Angel Studios, but I don't work there day to day, so I don't really talk about that much. But yeah, I'm just taking the award-winning and best-selling book series written by Connor Boyack and Elijah Stanfield that's sold over 4 million copies, and turning that into a really fun cartoon for kids to learn about the principles of freedom and economics. So.
And you're at Harmon Brothers as well, the advertising firm?
Yeah, I'm a consultant and advisor at Harmon Brothers, but most of my time is devoted to the creation of a cartoon, because it turns out that's hard work.
Yeah.
It takes more time than expected.
I can't even imagine being a showrunner for that, but we'll get into that more. But I want to talk about the model itself, and I learned this from talking to you guys and others of your brothers. Why, for instance, why is it that it's so darn expensive to make a movie in Hollywood? And I think that in some ways corrupts the model of what we're allowed to see and not allowed to see, because the barriers to entry are just insanely high in the millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, that is an awesome question, and we were shocked when we started understanding the ins and outs of how Hollywood works. For context, we consistently see big production budgets going up to 100, 150, 200, now even $250 million. And there's this big question mark is why is it costing so much? And what is the mechanism that would cause them to ever make content that maybe reflects my values, right? And it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. He who has the gold makes the rules, right? And so as we started digging into, when we launched our first original series, Dry Bar, that's blown up and now gets billions of views over its lifespan. And then we launched our first original series called The Chosen. And as we did that, we discovered something very, very interesting, in that every distributor in Hollywood, every studio, when they get $1 that comes in, they're going to take a 30% distribution fee, right off the top, right? And then they're going to take their distribution costs out, which is a little bit ironic when you consider the fact that they just took a distribution fee and now they're taking distribution costs. Then they'll have their marketing costs, and then they have an ad overhead fee of 15% for managing your marketing. And then they have their production costs they recoup. And if there's anything left over, there might be a back end for creators. We actually had one of our attorneys who's represented us in the past. He said that, and he'd done tons of different deals in Hollywood, and he said, I can count on one hand the amount of creators that I personally seen get a back end. And that was like, what? How? I mean, we've got billions of dollars being generated in this industry. How are the creators not getting back ends? And it's because the studio is not aligned on costs. Mm-hmm. They're up and down the line. They get their money first, and they don't care exactly what happened. I shouldn't say they don't care completely, because they do want to get returning creators, but they end up in this situation where they've built an incentive structure that has misalignment between them and the creator. And as a byproduct, the creator says, I'm never going to get a back end. It's never going to come. And so in order for me to make money, I need to inflate my production budgets as much as I physically possibly can, because that's the only time I'm going to make money on this series or this film. And so you end up in this really weird world where episodes of The Mandalorian are costing $20 million for 30 minutes of footage. And it's like, how did it get there? And so we decided that we wanted to completely rethink that. And we started saying, what if you treated, instead of every project or every series already having misalignment, what if you treated everyone like a tech startup? And what I mean by that is, if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm going to a venture capitalist and I say, hey, I have got this brilliant idea, you're going to love it, but I need $100 million to get it started. I said, whoa, what do you need $100 million for? They said, well, I don't think I'm going to make any money off of it, so I'm going to make money off of my seed round.
Right.
No venture capitalist is going to be like, yeah, here's $100 million, right? And 80% of projects in Hollywood fail. And you end up in this really weird situation. So we said, let's align us with the creator at the hip, where we don't have a distribution fee. We don't, take out random fees up and down the line. We have our hard costs for marketing at 25%, our 9 to 15% distribution actual expenses. And then we split with the creator 2/3, 1/3. They get 2/3, we get 1/3, and they can pay back their original investors. And in our model, that's the crowd who comes in and invests in those projects, which we can talk a little bit more about here in a minute. But it allows for them. It's been so interesting to me as we've discovered this model. I've had creators come in the door. They pitch me their incredible idea. I say, okay, cool. How much do you need for that series? And they'll go, I probably need like $25 million. I'm like, okay. And then I'll walk through our presentation. And I get to the end, and I've literally had creators text me afterwards or reach out to me afterwards. It's like, I was reevaluating my production budget. So I think I can do it for 8. Yeah. And it's like, oh my goodness, it just dropped into 1/3. That's amazing. Yeah. And it's because they realize here's a world where we're actually going to get paid if this is successful.
So it's kind of like it sounds like, for reasons that I still don't fully understand, Hollywood is kind of a cartel where a very small number of decision makers control everything, and they get fat and happy. But it's just a huge barrier to entry for creative types that have a beautiful idea. Maybe they're not finance guys that are going to figure out ever how to come up with a $25 million budget. So all the good stuff gets left on the table, or it never even gets thought about in the first place. To me, this is like radically democratic in a sense that,
oh yeah,
yes.
The same way I think about what's happened to music, like there's upsides and downsides to what technology has done to music distribution, but it also means that my bizarre tastes in music are served.
That's exactly
and
right.
The bands that create my bizarre taste in music thrive in a way that they just wouldn't have existed before that. Yeah. So it's kind of a creative disruption thing, and I call it the movie industrial complex, but I would also talk about the music industrial complex, where some guy was deciding, when I was a kid, some guy was deciding for me what kind of music I liked, and I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think so much of that plays into how we were able to create Tuttle Twins as a show. I mean, it's crowdfunded, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to go to Hollywood and pitch a major executive on creating a show about freedom and economics for kids, because they're not going to fund it, right? And so instead, we went to the crowd, both the people who would purchase the books and people who we felt like would be like-minded, and said, would you like this kind of a series to exist? And they said yes, like a resounding yes, when we gave a kind of a proof of concept. We developed the first pilot episode into an animatic. So it's a series of storyboards and temporary voices and things like that. So you could watch it and see kind of how it was gonna flow. It's like one of those things you watch on a behind the scenes DVD, right? Yeah. And we put that out in front of the public and said, do you want us to make this into a series, into a season? And it was over 8,000 people that said yes and invested. In fact, there was a whole bunch of them that were saying, I don't even care if I get my money back. I just want this thing to exist, right? And so we
to
raised...
be clear, as for Angel, we want them to get their money back.
Yes, we want them to get their money back. We very much want them to get their money back because that's the only way we get our money back as well. But ultimately, we were able to raise $3.7 million, which was a world record for the amount of crowdfunded money raised for a kid show. Mm-hmm. And we even passed the Netflix series Wakfu. And so it's content that wouldn't exist if it weren't for that kind of a democratization of funding the project altogether. Yeah.
So let's take a step back and explain where the Tuttle Twins come from, because I'm friends with Connor Boyack, and what's interesting to me is, as someone that runs a nonprofit, Free the People, we create content and we want people to watch it because our job is to turn people on to liberty.
Yep.
But you're also talking about a way that Connor, who also runs a libertarian free market think tank, a way that he can crowdfund in a more business savvy way, instead of sort of going to donors and begging, say, I'm never going to make any money on this, and I don't know if anyone's going to see it, but I have this idea to educate children about liberty.
Yeah.
So this potentially disrupts my world as well.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the way it was approached is with a Kickstarter, for example. Mm-hmm. You go and you donate to the project, and you might be getting like a T-shirt back in exchange, or maybe the product itself, or something along those lines. In this case, you actually are investing in the project, right? So Tuttle Twins, the TV show, is a for-profit venture, separate from the nonprofit stuff that Connor has going on, right? And so that is a little bit of the idea that it can become a profitable, sustainable business to create season after season of this kind of content, and that's how we approached it. And part of the magic of it is that when people invest, you tell them, listen, we're not going to pay ourselves out any profits until we've made you whole on your investment to 120%. Meaning, if they put $100 in, they need to at least get $120 back out before we pay ourselves any kind of a profit dividend.
Yeah. And
so that gives a lot of reassurance about the way that we're going to be approaching the business of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Talk about the team, and that this is more self-interested than anything. How do you produce an animated series this sophisticated? Because it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
It looks
thank
beautiful.
you. I appreciate that. You got to bring in top talent, and so I had the opportunity to work at Harmon Brothers for years and years. I still do consult and advise there, and got to know and worked with really great writers and really great directors, and learned a lot of those skills myself. And so when it came to creating Tuttle Twins, it was pulling in a lot of that talent that had already kind of proven themselves on a smaller basis in the advertising field. Like if you look at people like Walt Disney, like Pixar, of kind of where they started out, like Ridley and Tony Scott, I think both. I think even Michael Bay. A lot of these people came and cut their teeth in creating content with advertising first, before they went and applied it to filmmaking, right? And so that's kind of the path that we've followed with this, and so we've been able to recruit and bring in some really good creative talent to have great scripts and all that, and then also brought in a producer that used to work at Blue Sky Studios, that's known for Ice Age and some of that content, Peanuts movie and those. And she's been really great at helping us get our ducks all in a row, and has brought in a really good producing team. And then we have an animation partner down in Colombia, that is doing the grand majority of the animation itself. It's a 2D animated series, and so it's just kind of piece by piece putting it together and figuring it out. And we follow a very similar process to what we have done in creating ads in the past, where every script is vetted, I don't know how many times, with a brain trust, with people that are kind of identifying what's confusing, what's not working, what's not funny, what is working really well, and helping us refine that, because no one's just that brilliant on the first go, right? You actually have to create the script and then rewrite it, and then another draft, and then you do the same thing when you move over to the animatic, which is where you put the storyboards together with temporary voices and things to time it out for the animation. You do that over and over and over and over again until you actually get something really good, which is kind of the Pixar process, in all honesty, is what we're following, what's been documented in the book Creativity Inc.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So my two beefs with Liberty Content over the last 10 years, and maybe go back further, one is that the production values are kind of crappy, and two, that instead of creating an engaging product that tells a beautiful story, we want to beat people over the head with our message. And I'm going to pick on your T-shirt here, because I feel like your T-shirt is beating me over the head. I sort of dig it, but
sure.
Why are you so mean to communists?
Mostly just because communism has failed in every country it's ever been tried in. But no. So this is a joke by one of the characters. So in Tuttle Twins, the story is driven by a grandma who immigrated from Cuba as a young girl, and now has these grandkids, and she takes them on time-traveling adventures. She has a time-traveling wheelchair, and she takes them on these time-traveling adventures to go learn about famous figures from history and different time periods, to learn these lessons. And so it's kind of rooted in that, and like the character story itself is that grandma can kind of speak from a position of authority, because she's seen the oppression of communism, as a young girl. And but we are all about the ideas. We're not doing this along any kind of party lines. We almost never, I don't think we're 9 episodes in or 12 episodes in, and we haven't ever said the word, I don't think, conservative or liberal. But I think we've said Republican or Democrat like once as a joke, and we were kind of making fun of that for being too political and that kind of thing. It is really about the ideas and the principles, and we find a lot more commonality in that, and a lot more people agreeing with the content when they take it based on the ideas and thinking critically about that, rather than all the marketing badges and all that baggage that comes with it.
So it's not clickbait. It's you're trying to do something more substantial.
That's right.
And we have employees at Angel Studios who are on all sides of the aisle and viewpoints, and they love our model because they love that the crowd gets to dictate the content. But what was interesting to us is, as we started going down the path of being the distribution partner for Tuttle Twins, there were some people that were like, oh man, is this going to niche us into a certain market? And our goal is, how do you tell the principles and values in a broader sense across all of our projects, so that people go, oh, that was surprising, I really enjoyed it. And we've been our use cases for Tuttle Twins in particular is having employees who we know are very on left or right sides of the aisle, both coming to us and saying, that was really good. And that's I think that's what Daniel's and Johnny's goal is with that, is to really ride that line really, really well and make it about the values.
And I have to plug our project, because it's so shockingly similar to the narrative of the Tuttle Twins. We're competing at the Anthem Film Festival here, and we have a film called The Free Life, which is about an artist whose grandmother told him to flee Cuba when he was a teenager, because she said, you're not going to be allowed to create here. They will punish you for that. But there's no, I hope that there's no like politics or ideology in there. It's a story about creative integrity. With like, it would be hard to not appreciate the fact that artists are persecuted in communist countries if you watch it with at least a little bit of critical thinking, and that was sort of the goal. Speaking of production values, I want to give a shout out to The Chosen, because that it's a phenomenon. I'd love for you to tell people just how successful it was, but it looks beautiful, and it's a great story, and that to me is that's different for our guys to make that sort of content. But tell the story. It's amazing how this thing became a phenomenon.
Yeah, it's honestly quite a miracle that it is where it is today in so many facets. To give a little bit of history, I'll take a couple steps back. When we originally started Angel, which was originally called VidAngel, our idea was that we would build a product that would allow parents to mute and skip any things that they didn't want their families to see. We'd build this customer base, and then we would launch into original content after we had this large customer base. Well, the other studios didn't love that very much, and they sued us for multiple years. And as we were going through that experience, it really expedited our timeline jumping into original content. And it was interesting is we actually during that time period we had started Dry Bar. Dry Bar was doing really well, and it kept our company alive in a lot of ways. And then Matthew Faraci sent us this, we both know, sent us Jeffrey this clip, this short film called The Shepherd. And he said, hey, you've got to watch this. You've got to look at this. This might be something in terms of, what you guys are looking for in terms of an original series. And Jeff watched it, and he was like, this is it. And he sent it to Neil, and he goes, Neil, I think I found the first original series that we need to do. And Neil goes, what's it about? Before he watched it, he's like, it's a Jesus project. And Neil goes, no way on earth are we doing a Jesus project for our first original series. Like, there's just so many stereotypes that go with that and what that looks like. And we did, we're a for-profit company, and like, how do we handle this? And Jeff says, just watch it. And so he watched it. They sat down, and Neil said, he was in that moment where everything disappeared with his headphones on. And as farmers from Idaho, watching the story of the nativity of Christ from the viewpoint of the shepherd was so resonating. We were the fringe of society. The farmers are already a little bit the fringe of society, but we're on the fringe of society. We worked for the farmers. We didn't actually have our own farm. And so he takes off his headphones and he said, this is why we created VidAngel, Angel Studios now. And Jeff said, cool, now we got to go convince Dallas to do this with us. And that was a whole nother adventure where, he knew about us, and Matthew got us connected with him, and we, flew them out to Utah, and we had incredible experiences where we felt like we were so aligned on so many areas, and Dallas, and we said, we want The Chosen to be to Angel what House of Cards was to Netflix, right? Netflix created House of Cards. It was their first real big foray into original content. It blows it out of the water for 4 or 5 years, and it allows them to build this massive customer base where they can now act as this incredible distributor. And we couldn't be happier as to how well Dallas has delivered the content. Like, you said, how did it get to that production value? Dallas puts every dollar on that screen. Mm-hmm. And he is such an incredibly gifted director in his ability to pull performances and to think through the writing and the backstory of what these different people could have went through to get to where they were, where they said, I'm going to follow Jesus Christ when he called. And so we couldn't be happier with them as a partner in their delivery on creative. It's been incredible. And so that whole journey, matter of fact, as they were saying, Dallas and Amanda were in Utah, and as they were talking to Jeff before they left, Jeff went to them and said, okay, we're really excited to work with you. By the way, we're filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And Dallas was like, what? And his wife Amanda's like, well, guess I don't know exactly what she said, but I guess we'll figure it out. And the whole reason we did Chapter 11
bankruptcy. I know what wives usually say.
But the whole reason was just it was a protection for the studio and for Angel, and we utilized those protections, and it saved the company. But anyway, during that time period, The Chosen has exploded, and the way that it's exploded has been very interesting because we tried to distribute The Chosen in the same way that most distributors would do it, and that we did a subscription platform, and then we did like VOD, and we tried to give like maybe the first episode away free, and then try to get people to buy the rest of the episodes, and it wasn't really taking off. It was like pulling teeth getting people to watch a Jesus project. Mm-hmm. And we'd give DVDs away, and we'd be like, so what'd you think? And they're like, oh yeah, I'll get around to it. But then we'd have our ads, and people would comment and say, I wish I could watch this, but I can't afford it. And then there would be 3 replies saying, hey, DM me and I'll send you the DVDs. Or message me, I'll get them. This is amazing. And the ratings were coming in so spectacularly. And so we got to this point where we looked at the business model of Fortnite, Epic Games, who had just disrupted the entire gaming industry. And for those who aren't familiar with that, basically Fortnite in 2016, 2017 launches this game that's on par with anything else in the industry and says it's free. And everybody goes, what? What are you doing? And they're like, we're going to monetize through other ways. And they build this massive audience, and now Fortnite generates between $4 and $6 billion a year off of this one game, Epic Games does. And we said, what if we can connect the people who are dying to watch this but can't afford it to the people who want to share it today without them ever meeting it? And so we created a free model. We bet our entire company on it, where we said we're going to make it free, and we're going to use what we called pay it forward, which is you watch an episode. If you love it, you pay it forward so other people can watch it. We use merchandising. Obviously, merchandising, you can buy this shirt. Anyway, the point is this immediately within 24 hours of launching the complete free system, we had 4x growth and then 8x growth, and it was just day after day after day, and it was quite a miracle that we got to that point. But we're very, very excited we did. And now our goal is, by 2027, based on our metrics, we're hoping that we can reach over 1 billion people with our projects.
So, just facts and numbers, how have investors in The Chosen done?
Yeah, so with The Chosen, they have a very unique situation in that they told their investors, we want to make sure that we get all 7 seasons of this completely funded so that we can make sure we get through the entire story that we want to tell, and then we're going to start distributing profits. But that being said, the project itself has been immensely successful. It's been viewed hundreds of millions of times. And across all of our projects, we've generated in the new model well over $100 million in revenue. And so we're very, very excited. But in their particular situation, the fans are dying to make sure that all 7 seasons are secured and that they get there. And so they've kind of made that commitment to them. But with most projects, the goal is that it gets to a point where it can self-fund its future season as quickly as possible. And then anything in excess over that goes to distribute profits as quickly as possible.
Yeah. The model reminds me a little bit of, and this might sound weird to you guys, but I'm a big deadhead. And when I was a community organizer years ago, I read a book called Radical Marketing, and one of the case studies was the Grateful Dead. And they had, and I don't know if it was purposeful, but one of the rules of going to a Dead concert was you're allowed to come in and record the show and give it away. You just can't sell it. So they were giving away their product, and they ended up creating this massive, very loyal community of fans that 25 years after Jerry Garcia's death is still a very lucrative business. But it's a big business because it's a vibrant community that sort of shares content and has a sense of common belonging. And when we engaged your community on one of our prospective projects, I immediately got that sense that there's a sense that they're protecting your brand for you, and if you abandon your brand, they're going to kick your butt.
Yes, and I love that you bring that up, because it's a perfect segue into how we greenlight content. And you got to experience this firsthand. But the one of the things that's really important to us is we believe in the wisdom of crowds. Mm-hmm. And we believe there's actually a book called The Wisdom of Crowds where they give this analogy in the book where this psychologist was going through and trying to prove that only the elite can make decisions for society. And he goes to this fair and sees this cow on display, and everybody's putting in their guesses, and the closest guess gets a prize. And afterwards, he asked to collect all the responses, and he looks through the 900 responses, and nobody's even close. And he's like, "This is proof that people are idiots. They can't make decisions. Like they're not smart enough."
Yeah.
But then he looked at the data a little differently, and he took the average of all the 900 plus responses, and the answer was 1 pound off from the cow. And the interesting part about that for us is we believe that it's much easier to corrupt a few than it is to corrupt a crowd, a community, a huge crowd. That's so much more difficult. And so we built what's called the angel jury, which is anybody who's ever invested in the Tuttle Twins, freelancers, The Chosen, any one of our original content pieces, they become the gatekeepers of Angel's original content. And they're asked 2 questions for every project that's submitted. And when a project's submitted, they submit like a short film or a pilot episode or a torch. We call it a torch, but it's basically a proof of concept piece. And they're asked, does this story amplify light? Because that's our mission, is to tell stories that amplify light. And two, if this was never made into a series or a film, how would you feel? This is called the Sean Ellis test. He did it on Slack back in the early days. It proved Slack's success, and the 3 answers he gave were, with Slack's customer base, if Slack didn't exist tomorrow, how would you feel? Very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, or not disappointed. He didn't care about somewhat disappointed or not disappointed. He just wanted to know how many people would be very disappointed if Slack didn't exist. 54% of people come back and say, we love this product, we'd be very disappointed. He says, we've got something special here, we need to double down. And lo and behold, it sells for $27 billion last year. And so every project has to get past, right now, 40% at a minimum of people saying, I'd be very disappointed if this didn't come about, which is not an easy thing to do. 90-something% of projects fail that step. But it's this incredible opportunity for the community to really safeguard the future of angel content.
So Tuttle Twins is happening right now, but you're also attracting some major investors at this point. It's becoming, like, people are noticing.
Yes. Matter of fact, we have a round that we did with GigaFund, which is one of the large investors in SpaceX and Elon Musk, and they're the mission and the purpose of their fund is to invest in companies that they believe will transform industries for decades to come. And so we raised nearly $50 million, and it's very, very exciting to see people catch the vision of what we're trying to do and accomplish, because like we said earlier, there's something powerful happening in terms of how entertainment's delivered, but also how it's funded. The democratization of that is going to allow for the content in the long run to be so much more compelling and so much more adapted to the audience who's really want it.
Well, let's talk about creative destruction, kind of where we started this conversation, because I'm sure we all pick on big Hollywood and the movie industrial complex and the almost comical kowtowing to China when John Cena mentions the T word, Taiwan. They're captured, right? And they're, it's not really their problem to fix it. It's your guys' problem. It's our problem. It's our problem as consumers to figure out a way to find a better product. You mentioned the wisdom of crowds, and I drive my wife crazy because I'm an economist and I love to quote dead guys.
Yes.
and I constantly am quoting this guy from the 1700s, Adam Ferguson, who is credited with coming up with this idea of the wisdom of crowds. It was a Scottish Enlightenment philosopher who basically said, you know what, no matter what governments do, people figure stuff out. And you can try to manipulate them and you can try to direct them, but they're going to figure it out for themselves. Yeah. And I feel like that's where we are here. I mean, you guys are facing the market right now. What do the incumbents think about you? Like, are you getting blowback? Have they noticed yet? Are they coming after you? Have you lawyered up?
I think, interestingly enough, because our model is so, they definitely know about us. The answer is an absolute yes to that. We've had multiple creators that we've actually brought on who had worked with them or were working with other studios, major studios. And that's been one of the interesting things about our model, is I originally thought, okay, this is the perfect model for any indie filmmaker who can't get a chance, because it's all based on your merits and what you put together and how you present, and we help them get there and connect with their community. But ironically, a lot of the indie filmmakers who haven't quite made it in Hollywood still have this allure of Hollywood where they're like, oh man, I still want to get that big Hollywood deal. And the majority of people who we've been bringing in and signing distribution deals with have been people who have done it in Hollywood. They've had massive Netflix series or Disney deals or Universal or whatever it is, and they realized how broken and convoluted the systems were in there, and they said, yeah, I'm not. The moment this became available, I was like, I want that. And so I think they're definitely on notice, but we have the advantage in that there's a book called The Innovator's Dilemma, in that because we're serving a market that they haven't served in a long, long time, it sometimes takes a long time for them to realize it. Mm-hmm. In that it's not on their radar. They see us, it's there, but the reality is they're not really contemplating the full magnitude of what's approaching their doorstep. And that's a pretty common consensus when you look at different industries that have been disrupted. If you went and talked to anybody who was in the incumbents, they would have said, maybe in retrospect, they'd say, yeah, we knew, right? But the reality is they didn't really know and didn't really contemplate the full magnitude of it. And so we're very excited about where we're positioned. Across all of our projects, we've passed well over 100 million viewers. And so we think that we're just getting started. But that being said, we don't view what they're doing, because they're all in such a different business model with their subscription models, and they're all in a kind of a subscription bloodbath. And we're kind of enjoying this blue ocean of this free model where we're innovating in a whole new way.
Yeah. So they're not really competitors in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say they're not competitors, because then they'd be like, "What? You were totally." But I don't wake up in the morning going, "What's Netflix or Disney or them going to do?" It's not even on my. It's not even on our mind.
Yeah, it's just all about how do we serve our customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let's, if people want to find the Tuttle Twins, or if they want to find Angel Studios, or if they want to become investors, why don't we start with you? But tell us where they go.
TuttleTwins.tv is where you can go to watch the show for free. And we have the same models that Chosen. You can pay it forward to help make it possible to create more episodes and more seasons in the future, which is fantastic. And in fact, people get an opportunity to own digital frames of the show if they want to, which is kind of cool. But so that's Tuttle Twins.
Yeah, and then with Angel, you can go to angel.com. You'll see on the top there's the watch page, which will show all of our different series and films. We've got obviously Dry Bar, which has been massively successful, and then The Chosen, which season 1 and 2 are out, and season 3 is currently in production and coming out. We don't have an official date, but later this year. And then we have a series called The Riot and the Dance that's coming out later this year, and then in December another kids series called The Wingfeather Saga, which is another incredible selling book series that my kids absolutely love and adore. And so we're very excited. What you see today is about 5% of what Angel's doing in the background.
Yeah.
And it's very exciting.
One thing we didn't talk about, because I want to tell people where they can buy this fabulous T-shirt, but but part of this, going back to the Grateful Dead, part of this sense of community for your products and your investors is they buy a lot of merch too.
Yeah.
Because they're proud to be part of something. Talk about, I don't know who should talk about this, but talk about the merch and tell us where we buy this shirt.
So where you buy the shirt is TuttleTwins.store. So you
We're
can
really
find
creative with our names.
Yeah. Did you guys brainstorm that one for a while?
Yes. No. But as far as like the merchandise goes, 70% of revenue for kids shows is usually earned through merchandise. So we knew that would be a major revenue driver for being able to get to a sustainable show for us. Mm-hmm. And if you look at a lot of the biggest properties out there, like Toy Story and like Cars,
Pokemon,
and Winnie the Pooh, and all these, like, the shows themselves become almost ads for all the revenue that's driven by the merchandise itself. So so we have a bunch of shirts, and we have some comic books or graphic novels that are available of each of the episodes there on the website. And sooner or later there's plushies coming as well of the characters and action figures, but one thing at a time.
Yeah, I'll wait for the plushies. Thank you guys so much.
No, thanks, Matt. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that show, make sure that you like and subscribe. Click the little bell so that you get notifications. And if you consume this via podcast, go wherever you want to go. We're everywhere. Kibbe on Liberty. The revolution starts now.